opportunity to speak in this I don't know if it's the same series or on the business side of things, but the first time it was during COVID. And so I did it via Zoom, and I'd never done that before, but it was really fun. Yeah, thank you. I see a couple of familiar faces from that, so thanks for coming back. We kind of have an intimate group here today, so I was kind of hoping, I like to know my audience a little bit. This is a dynamic place. I was hoping we could kind of go around the room and you could introduce yourself and tell me, your name, what you're studying, if you're studying here, and your favorite thing to do, and, rain, snow. I'm going to start over here. Awesome. Love that. Cool. Nice. That's awesome. Back here. Excellent. Thank you. Yep. Awesome. In the back, all the way. Wonderful. Nice. You stole one. That's good, right? Wonderful. The man, the myth, the legend, right? All the way you in the back. Yep. Awesome. Welcome. Okay.
Hi, I'm Liz Rizzo. I'm essentially the social media manager over at CAS, or the College of Arts and Sciences. We came from Madison College. I was the digital writer for the marketing team.
Awesome.
And I'm Blaine. In addition to what I said earlier, I spent about 25 years in 3M and industrial marketing.
That's right. Awesome. Well, again, thank you for having me here. I was going to start just to talk a little bit about Anchor Paper. Anchor Paper is headquartered in downtown St. Paul. We are what I would call a hybrid, kind of dual source paper and packaging distributor and converter. Does anybody in here, besides you back there, know what a converter is? I know you do too. Anybody else? Yes. Okay. So in our case, you're going to hear me talk a lot about converting, and I'm going to talk about paper and packaging converting. For us at Anchor Paper, we take large rolls of paper and we would rewind them down to smaller rolls, which would be a roll-to-roll printing application. So think about book publishing. That's how a lot of books are published, are roll-to-roll print. Or we would take those large rolls and we would sheet them into sheets. So that would go through a sheet-fed print press, which would be a lot of your digital variable data. A lot of catalogs get done that way, brochures, probably things that you use to promote the school here. On the packaging side, for us, that is foam and bubble. So think of that bubble wrap that you pop, right? We don't manufacture it, we convert it over down the road here. So Uline, you're all familiar with Uline. We supply them with a lot of their foam and bubble void fill packaging. So think sheets, sleeves, and pouches. So that is what our company does. We convert. We also distribute those items. Paper, it's any kind of papers that you can think about. But when I'm talking about packaging, I'm excluding the box. So Uline does a great job with the box. Anchor Paper is really good at selling and converting void fill, so items that would secure, rather material that would secure items inside a box or that would secure that box to a pallet. So think about stretch wrappers, even robots, mezzanine, things like that. We're getting into that and I'll talk about it more, but I just wanted to make that I guess, point, because a lot of people think, especially with COVID and the rise of e-commerce, that we're getting involved in boxes, and I couldn't want to do that less. So there are a lot of other really, really talented places that do that. So I won't go over this whole slide, but I will just make the point that we're headquartered in Minnesota. 3 of our distribution assets are located there. 2 of them are here in western Wisconsin. We've got a converting facility in River Falls, and then a holding warehouse in Hudson. We like to say that we will take any order. I mean, if you go to our retail store in Plymouth, you can walk out with just 1 envelope. For the most part, though, the bulk of our products are economy, larger quantities, that kind of a thing. We would say that we like customers, and customers like us, that they're looking for someone local, they're looking for someone reputable, and they're looking for someone knowledgeable to help them find the right product or to sell them products. I note our mission statement here. I'm not going to read it. It is a lengthy mission statement, but I think what is notable about this mission statement is that it really solidifies the fact that we are the monkey in the middle. We are the distributor. We have to work really closely with our supply chain as well as with our customers and end user brands. And so it's really important for us to manage that dynamic relationship and bring solutions to the table. And I would say innovation lesson number 1, right? We're all in the people business, no matter whether we're in finance or we're working in a lab. We all work with people, and those relationships are important, probably more important than they've ever been, and as dynamic as they need to be with how quickly everything is changing. So what about me? Who am I, right? What do I know about innovation? I'm not going to dive too deep, but there are some experiences that I think have helped me kind of lead our business as we've moved through the last decade, which has been quite challenging and wrought with a lot of unique challenges. So yes, I'm the CEO of Anchor Paper. I also represent my family's 4th generation of leadership and involvement in the business. Also a little bit of an anomaly, I'm the only family member that is in the business. In addition to being majority family owned, Anchor is a hybrid ESOP. So that means that 49% of our company is owned by our employees. The remaining 51% is owned by my family. It's a pretty small group at this point, and I'm really lucky. They kind of trust me, they trust our board, and they really kind of have taken a hands-off approach, which has been helpful as we've had to pivot and kind of move quickly in the last decade. I would also say, and I think anybody in business would tell, any area of work, that it's great to work hard, but you got to play hard too. You got to have a little fun, you got to have a little balance. Blaine and I were talking earlier. One of my hobbies, I am an avid curler. I'm a lifelong Minnesotan, and I just believe that to get through the winter, you got to find something you like to do. So for me, it's curling. Every Wednesday, I show up at the St. Paul Curling Club, and I curl for 2 hours. I do what I'm told, and I drink a beer after, and it's pretty darn good. So that's my family there in the bottom corner. I am single. I don't have children, but my sister has 2. I'm lucky to be an active aunt. My sister lives pretty close. I see those kids a lot, and it's awesome. So, and then I know I'm in enemy territory, but I'm a big football fan. Skol Vikings, sorry. But I try to get out and out in the world when I can. A little bit about my background. I won't go too far. I mostly just love this photo. Old school Lee jeans. But yeah, born and raised in St. Paul. I graduated high school in 1999. I won't do the math, but I'm squarely middle-aged. I had a couple leadership roles, I guess, in high school. I was the editor of the school paper. That was my first real introduction to print and loving, kind of getting to know paper. So that was a lot of fun. And then captain of our volleyball team. And then I moved on to St. Olaf College. I graduated in the class of 2003 with a major in psychology and business management. And then I think the real kind of journey began. I took my first job overseas. So I worked for a Japanese company, which seemed like a great idea on paper, right? I was like, I like sushi. This will be fun. man, for anyone that's lived in a foreign country or traveled to one, I very squarely found out immediately that I was no longer in proverbial Kansas, Minnesota, whatever you want to call it. So it was a wild ride. It was a great 2 years. I was initially hired to teach business English, so basically to give a PowerPoint or a presentation in English, which was a lot of fun. I love people. I love having conversations, and I was within about 6 months recruited to help them start an early education program. So then I was recruited to kind of bring in 2 to 4 year olds to teach them English, which basically meant that I jumped around and sang and taught the Hungry Caterpillar and things like that. And it was wild. It was great. It was a wonderful 2-year lesson in life and work. I got really good at charades, and I think most importantly, I got to meet people from all over the world. I worked for a company that recruited heavily from Australia, the UK, New Zealand, Canada, and the US. The US, we actually had the smallest contingent of foreign, English speakers. So I have friends all over the world, even still, and that's just been a wonderful, wonderful experience. And probably the other lesson as it relates to innovation and how I think about things is that, not everything's at eye level, right? I remember I had to go, it's not a great story, but I had to go to the dentist within my first month of being in Japan, which was that's like a whole other discussion. But I couldn't find it. I mean, I walked around for like an hour. I missed the appointment. I had to reschedule it. And I remember one of my Japanese coworkers looking at me and saying, Brooke, everything's tall here. You gotta look up. It's not ground level. It's not what it seems. You gotta look around a little bit. And so I think about that a lot when I've been tasked with something, which I'll get into a little bit, running our business, to say, okay, take a breath. What's the whole landscape? What does it look like? Not just in front of me, but up, down, left, and right. So I came home from Japan. I taught a little bit. And I was looking for a job. And I had a job interview with 3M, actually. And I guess to back up the business, I had mentioned I'm 4th generation of my family to be in the business, but I didn't grow up with that knowledge that I was in a family business, which I think as I've gotten my feet more wet with this role, I've learned that's really an anomaly. I didn't grow up going into the business, talking about it at the table. I mean, I later learned that was a hard and fast rule. At one point, my mother, my grandpa, her 2 sisters, a son-in-law were all in the business. And we never, that was my grandma's rule, you don't talk about it. Work is over here, family and fun are over here. And so it never occurred to me to work at Anchor. And so it wasn't until I was entertaining a job with 3M that my mother, who was running the business at the time, pulled me in and said, hey, we're growing in our packaging space. 3M is a growing, important partner to us. We'd love to have you interview and see what you think. And so, long story short, I did that. I ended up taking that job because there were some other I didn't quite know what I wanted to do yet, and I just thought, I can kind of help them grow some of this. They had just gone from literally like a paper card catalog for stock, which is wild to me now, to going to an ERP system and having it be digitized. So I think they also kind of saw someone that was 20-something that could navigate a computer to say, hey, help us with this. So long story short, I cut my teeth on the industrial purchasing side, largely buying from 3M, but also quoting on the packaging converting side of our business. So remember the foam and bubble that we're converting. I was responsible for Uline, which has been a very cool relationship. I learned a lot. Of course, at that time, Uline was located in Eagan. They have since moved there, our neighbor. But really a great relationship, I think, to cut my teeth on and to have that experience of straddling both distribution with manufacturing right out of the chute. I went from there working in a niche division of our company with seed germination paper, which for those of you that heard my talk a couple years ago, I did a deep dive into that, but kind of an interesting niche, one of those products that keep you sticky in business. And then I got kind of roped into fine paper purchasing, which was great because that was when I came into the business, 70% of our business was in printing papers, 30% was in packaging. And so I ended up getting pulled over to that side right in time for making a acquisition with Viex Converting, which is that top kind of goofily spelled name. That business was located in Hudson, Wisconsin, right by the Fleet Farm, for those of you that are familiar with that area. It was a really small paper converting facility. They had one sheeter, we called it a half of a rewinder. I don't think I ever saw that machine run in the, 6 years that we ran it over there. But long story short, I helped integrate that business model into our distribution model, which was very interesting, and it helped me because within 10 months, my mother passed away very suddenly, and I was kind of pushed into, I wouldn't say pushed in, but I had to step in to transition that business. And at the time, it was a wild time. I mean, I'd worked in a few different areas of the company, but I wasn't in an executive role. I had never read a P&L. I'd never managed a budget. So I mean, it was a lot. I candidly didn't know if I was stepping in to run it or to make it look good to sell it. So I had kind of a lot of, big fire hose that I was drinking out of. But as the old adage goes, we get by with a little help from our friends, right? So hopefully we don't know what we don't know, because that means we can learn and there's opportunity. And that was certainly the position that I did find myself in. And, fall 7 times, stand up 8, right? You ask questions, you keep showing up. And so that really was my first, I would say solid 2 years of my tenure as CEO was just, holy macaroni, what is, today gonna bring? What does it look like? I was lucky, I had a good team. I had a lot of people that wanted to see Anchor Paper succeed, because at that point we had been in business 85, 90 years, right? And those relationships, they're steadfast. Supply chain relies on small to medium-sized businesses like that to toe the line. So I was lucky in a lot of ways looking back. I had a lot of people in my corner, but I think it's always important to keep showing up. So we're 2014, I'm stepping into this role. And I would say that the paper sector, for those of you familiar with print or anything, it was already kind of on a solid decline. And a lot of it has to do with these, right? And these are great. They've changed our lives immeasurably. But when you talk about a demand, a supply and demand curve, supply way outpaced demand for a long time, and we're still battling that. So when I stepped into the arena in 2014 I got 70% of my business that's fine paper that's declining at 4 to 9% a year, depending on the grade. What do you do, right? You cannot just tie a knot and hang on. We had some good things going for us. We had packaging was growing. It was nice, steady, but it wasn't 9%, 10%, 15%, right? So I had a couple challenges that I had to stare squarely in the face. Demand just going down, supply chain. We're sitting in the state of Wisconsin. How many mills have gone away or closed their doors? This state in particular has felt the hurt from what has happened in printing and paper manufacturing. So that was really starting to stack at this point. And again, I had a lot of other challenges I was looking at, but this was really what kept me up at night for a couple years. So I think it was about 2016, we were sitting with our leadership team. For Anchor, our fiscal year goes from April 1 to March 31st. So we're kind of squarely in planning and strategic work right now. And we were kind of in that place at this time. And we're looking at things, and we're looking at our opportunities, our pipeline. And it's like, man, we've got a good thing going with packaging and this growing, converting business. But we got real issues. I've got a 25,000 square foot facility in Hudson. I'm stuffing, 10 pounds of stuff into a 5-pound bag. I can't expand it. I've got a ton of opportunity, but I can't realize it. And, how do you scale? What do you do for that? And we bounced a lot of things around. At the time, we were also looking at would have been for us a pretty big acquisition over in Green Bay. And we just, have you guys ever had one of those weeks where like every day something goes wrong and it's just like, holy moly. There were a few of us kind of sitting around the table. We had just kind of botched we didn't botch the acquisition, but it went sideways. And I just looked at everyone and I said, what if we built a brand new converting facility, put everything together, doubled down on this, let's go. And I remember my CFO just looked at me and he said, who is spending millions of dollars right now and putting all their eggs in paper manufacturing and distribution? And I was like, well, let's model it. I mean, it took like a year to convince these people in a good way. There were a lot of, we had a lot of reasons for why it was a good thing. But fast forward to 2019, we built this place. I think a number of you have been there. Dale, I know you have, Blaine. But it's about a 90,000 square foot facility that we put our paper and packaging operations into. We quadrupled the output by machine, so we added, so we have a total of 3 rewinders there, 3 paper sheeters, and then we have 4 foam and bubble machines, so sheets and pouches. This was a huge win for us. I think we were able to realize a lot from doing this. It was a big bet that we made. We got everybody under one roof. I guess I would say it would have been the holiday season of 2019. We got a solid quarter of production in, and then COVID hit. And I'll tell you what, you want to send a CFO sideways, spend $8 million, leverage your company, put them completely in debt, and then have a national pandemic happen. So I wasn't thinking the idea was that great for about 3 months, but the dice went the right way, and it ended up just with how things kind of happened with COVID and how we came out of COVID. It ended up being the best thing that we could have done because it did all of these things that are bulleted here. I mean, we were able to just find efficiencies of bringing together 2 locations under one roof that shared a lot of the same, kind of functions. We could share resources. It vertically integrated our operation. So we were able to, for commodity items, take a step out of the process, i.e. having our mill partners convert products to allowing us to do it. It gave us about a 10-point advantage on the margin side, which in distribution is huge. And it also enabled us to explore different areas of business. It gave us kind of a different look from a lot of different types of manufacturers that a traditional distributor wouldn't get to work with. So it was a new channels of business, but it also enabled us to provide service, which for anybody familiar, if I can use a distribution model that everyone knows, think about Amazon, right? Amazon makes a lot of money because they buy and sell and whatever, but they also provide streaming services, right? They, do all, they send subscriptions, all different kinds of stuff. So for us, to be able to say, okay, finance major, right? I'm gonna buy product and I'm gonna convert it and have my sales team sell it, but you might have product that you've already bought that you just need to have cut down. That's not on my books, right? I'm just billing you for a service at what some would say is 100% profit, right? So that's a different revenue stream that was really great for us to say, oh man, this just, really enhances our bottom line in a way we could have never realized before. So it really did transform our business. It allowed us to grow, but it, for something that was making up about 5% of our revenue prior to, I would say, last year, now it's closer to 26%. So huge win. It's been a wave that we've continued to ride and expand, and it's been really excited. And I think, we're not done yet, which is great. So let's speak about that, right? Big win. That facility has added a lot to our business model, but we still have challenges, right? And a lot of the challenges that you see up here are challenges that you're seeing in the news in a lot of different industries. And I think, everybody's industry that's in this room is affected in some ways from a trickle out of tariffs. Supply chain being uncertain, right? We have some geopolitical things playing out that are going to make for some interesting ramifications down the road. AI is going to continue to change the game. I mean, there's just a lot of things that I think all of us have to think about, right? And things certainly that I have to think about, in the industries that our company serves. So, for us, a lot of raw materials on the paper side weren't affected by tariffs, but I'll tell you what, when it comes to plastic and resin, all those chemicals, and now what's happening in the Middle East, man, it's going to be an interesting 60 days. I think it's going to be a wild ride. So energy is going to continue to be something that we're all going to hear about, whether it's affecting things in Europe or here. And I think that's just going to be something that we continue to talk about and have to pivot with, as well as sustainability. So, there's no rest for the wicked, right? I mean, it's something that we continue to think about. And so when we look at a traditional, for me, a distribution company or a manufacturing company, I think these are all things that I know my peers are thinking about and that we look at. And I think oh man, I had a leadership lesson I forgot about. Managing people has never been more important, right? Because, and I don't know about you guys, I'm sure you talk about this in class, at home, but there's just a lot of uncertainty, and I think that bleeds in too. I know it does our workplace. It's important to have conversations and I think be transparent. Personally, that's something I really lead forward with. I'm sure my mom and grandpa are rolling around in their graves knowing that I talk about our revenue, our margin, gaps that we have, but I think it's really important to do that, to get everyone working together because things move so fast. So as far as where we're going next, I think there's a lot of opportunity. We keep talking about packaging. Paper is great. It's going to continue to be a key part of our business, but even with what we've done in River Falls, we've seen a tremendous increase in packaging. I think this will be the first fiscal year where our packaging sales will outpace our paper sales. And so again, for us, packaging is everything that secures items inside a box. But since COVID, it's been really important to secure those boxes to a pallet, because you think about how dynamic and interspread our commerce has become since COVID. We are helping folks at Saputo Dairy and at a number of places down, Michael Foods, ship eggs and dairy across the country. You got to keep that cold. You got to keep that secure. And I'll tell you, there's never been a more exciting time to be involved in the automation and the products that are involved in that. So that's something that we've also kind of been able to deep dive in, and that's going to be an area of tremendous growth for us this year. We made a material handling acquisition, which if you come to our River Falls plant, we have some of that set up. We've integrated that into our packaging operation so people can come in and see what we can do, how we can help production lines get widgets from point A to point B. But that's going to continue, I think, to be really important for manufacturers all over, because labor is still such a challenge, and we're just seeing automation take over some of those jobs simply because it's a scarcity, right? And food producers especially have to get products out the door. So that's going to be an area of focus for us. We'll be completely retooling our packaging converting room over in River Falls, so that's really exciting. We just pulled the trigger on that. And then, of course, I talked a little bit about sustainability, but the other thing that has been something that we really thought a lot about, I think this is the second group I've talked to about this, but we will be changing our name. So again, you want to make a CFO crazy, spend $500,000 changing a name from Anchor Paper to Anchor, right? When I sent him what we decided on, he was like, "You got to be kidding me. We really paid for this, right?" But we found that it's short and sweet is good, and paper has really kind of limited us in some ways from being able to have comprehensive conversations about packaging. So we're not becoming Apple or anything, but it's kind of an exciting thing for us, again, as we kind of look at who we are and where we're going. So in closing, as I think about innovation, the measure of intelligence is the ability to change. I think that's so true. Again, you got to be willing to look at things a lot of different ways, continue to show up. You got to challenge the status quo and dare to dream. There's opportunity everywhere, but you also can't change what you're not willing to confront. And I'll tell you what, I know, that acquisition I talked about that we kind of missed out on in Green Bay, I'm sure glad we did, because that was a group that they tied a knot and hung on, right? They didn't change with things. They didn't embrace technology. And I think for a lot of legacy folks in that printing space, in that paper space, these things are scary, right? And it's an attitude like, man, if I just work harder, if I hang in there, it'll come, right? But things change, right? We have to adapt. And the last one is, how you show up matters. I think optimism is a force multiplier. You got to have a little fun, you got to have a little faith, and hopefully you have a good team. The last thing, okay, since AI, it's a buzzword, I'm having everyone on our team embrace Copilot and do this stuff, and so I was going over this with my director of IT, this presentation. She said, well, did you use Copilot, at all? And I said, I didn't, but I should just put in Copilot, what does innovation look like for a 103-year-old paper distributor, which is what we are. And I highlighted it because I thought it was kind of cool because it was, essentially what we kind of did. But I'll just read this little snippet, but it says, distributors that survived the last decade shifted away from commodity paper, added services and specialty products, enforced cost to serve discipline, built resilient supply chains, embraced sustainability requirements, focused on regional strength, modernized operations, and most importantly, accepted permanent change instead of waiting for recovery. So I don't know that that's the story for every business that has innovated in the last 10 years, but I know for us it sure has been. So I have a little mantra every year with our team. Has anybody in here ever read The Endurance? The story of Ernest Shackleton? Has anyone read that? Man, if anybody is an avid reader, it's a great book. It's a survival story, but it's awesome. It's called The Endurance. It's a story about Ernest Shackleton and kind of a wayward adventure that could have gone really wrong, but that was kind of the theme of that book, was through endurance we conquer. So that's what I got. Who's got questions?
Hand these around. If you'd like to learn more about future speaker series, please do that. So the sign here says Anchor Paper. Everyone sees it through downtown St.
Yep.
Paul. Will it continue to say Anchor Paper?
Yeah, we got to keep the sign.
It'd
You
be
know,
like
it's
the
kind of.
first national bank.
Yeah, we'll keep it. So.
Is
Yeah.
everyone familiar with the story of Shackleton? And
It's so good.
history? Okay.
I don't want to tell it because the ending is. You don't want to tell the end,
All right.
but it is rough, you guys. You gotta read it. It's great.
Any questions?
So, we just had a faculty speaker who was talking about kind of the next generation of research, really looking at how we can get some of our feedstocks back.
Yeah.
So I think about that with some of the things that you're doing. We now have all plastics originally come from the barrel.
Yep.
But then once they're the plastic, how do we get some of that back so we don't have to go back to a new barrel, but we keep using it upscale, right? And so I think about that with paper too, right? We grow trees, but how many, or bamboo or whatever it happens to be, but at some point, what do you use? So you mentioned sustainability, so where does some of that fit in with things that you're looking at in the future?
Yeah. So if we're going to talk about plastic specifically, and plastic is tough. I'm not going to lie. I mean, and I think I would say first it stems with education. So I don't know the recycling, how that works here. I know in the Twin Cities they went to a single sort recycling situation, really to get everyone to recycle, but it's become a nightmare because when you put all the plastics in that absolutely cannot be recycled in with stuff that can, you're just automatically, it's the footprints, it's really become ugly. They're going to have to change it, I think, if we're really going to take sustainability seriously. I think you've got to go back to sorting them out because it's tough, and there are some plastics right now that just can't be recycled. I would say for us, we talk about, again, when you think about securing things to a pallet, for our company, that's stretch film. And so we focus on yield. And so we work with I won't go too into the weeds with this, but a supplier that has I would say a superior cling. It's more expensive per pound, but they use much less of it because of the way it can stretch. So for us, it's about minimizing that ugly footprint. We're really not in a great spot, with some exceptions, to be in a completely recyclable plastic situation. So I think the game is making sure you can reuse what really can be, recycled, and then really, really minimizing the footprint of the ugly stuff. And then honestly, when you talk about a comeback, paper's made a heck of a comeback when it comes to packaging. So I think it was in my previous slide, but paper void fill machines and stuff, I mean, that's the thing. Paper can be recycled 7 times. So, what was like, you're killing trees, this is terrible, a decade ago. Now, like, paper's become this unsung hero that we're trying to figure out, hey, how do we use that to secure items inside of a box instead of, like, packing peanuts or things like that. So more to that, I think.
Remember the shift to starch. That was the big
Well, 100%.
thing.
Yep.
Instead of using people,
Yeah.
starch.
Yes.
Just dissolve it.
Yes. Or break down. Don't get it wet. Yes.
I'm curious about the germination paper.
Yeah.
When we're in our lab for students who are really
Yep.
for doing the test, but I can imagine like it's always you're always innovating because aren't talking about some companies that are kind of roboticizing seed germination testing and things like that? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I would say they're being more efficient with that testing. So, like, what I'm seeing is actually, instead of it being sheets of paper, now it's rolls. And so those they're doing it differently, but they're still using the same medium. For a while, speaking of starch, they were looking at using agar, which is like a rice kind of, it's like a goo. And that's just a mess. So I don't know that that's taken off like they thought. We're thankful for that because it keeps us in business with that niche product. But yeah.
How many employees do you have?
Anywhere from like, I think currently today we're sitting at like 111. So depending on how busy we are, I mean, we'd love some more employees out at River Falls. Up to 120. Right.
So, River Falls is obviously a greenfield site for you. So, what was the decision, why did you put River Falls as a location?
That's an awesome question. Yeah, so when we were looking to expand, I mean, and that took several iterations, we first looked to see if we could expand on the sites we were at in Hudson. And we were not able to get the kind of footprint we wanted. We were working with a broker at the time that said, hey, are you willing, River Falls has a ton of incentives to bring business into that community. Would you be willing to look at River Falls? And, it really wasn't on my radar. I was really more concerned. I wanted to keep the talent we had. I think people are your most important asset, especially in manufacturing. That can take years to teach. I really just wanted to be on the 94-35 corridor. I wanted to be close. I didn't want to have a freight infringement from what we were already dealing with. And River Falls was awesome. Carrie Schreier, I mean that whole group, economic development in the city of River Falls. I think for a while I was like, man, they're calling me every week. Like, can they answer a question? What did I want to know? Could I get can we give you a tour? There were some nice incentives as well, economic incentives to come here, just from the land standpoint. But this has been a great community. I can't say enough about it. It was the right distance away. I think in that transition, we only lost 2 employees, and there were 2 employees that were, one retired and the other one was going to be moving out of state anyway. So it was great.
You made the comment during your presentation of work hard, play hard.
Yes,
But
yeah.
you also give a lot. It's not just work and play. You're involved.
Yeah,
in
we like to,
community
yep.
With the St. Paul Chamber.
Yep.
Many charities. Could you speak to that a little bit, and what that means to you, and how that
Yeah.
works along with everything else?
Yeah, so I think obviously River Falls is our newest location, but prior to that, we've been in downtown St. Paul, I think 90 years now. Same location. We've been in Plymouth for 40. Is one of our other. It's a retail and a warehouse site. You get to know people, right? I mean, we believe really we employ people from all those communities, and we want to be involved in it. So a lot of times, whether it's a printer or a food manufacturer, we're involved, in a lot of different sides of the transaction. So I think just naturally, it's our culture to be social and friendly. And I mean, Anchor's always been involved in a number of organizations. I think for me personally, we were talking earlier about Spare Key, which is an organization that helps to pay medical and living bills for families with a sick or injured child or parent in the hospital. That was an easy one for us because one of our supply chain partners utilized that service, and they came to Anchor to see if we were willing to donate some paper for a periodical. And I said, yeah, what else can we do? And that's the kind of thing when you're entrenched in a space, in a community with people for a length of time, you get involved in the lives of those people and those organizations. So, we're always kind of looking for organizations and places to get involved in. I mean, like I said, we've been here in River Falls since, 2019, 2020. I've been fortunate enough to get to know you folks and, a couple of the other organizations in the area, and it's wonderful. So anything we can ever do, whether it's hosting a Rotary Club meeting or, coming to speak with people like yourselves, we're happy to do it. Or if you want a job. Yeah.
So interesting enough, we overlapped at St. Olaf, but you would have been a freshman.
Okay.
You were in organic chemistry at the time.
Okay.
I was a professor there in
Okay.
99.
Oh, awesome.
But when you think back to, I love to find out people where they were at when they were in college versus where you're at now. So when you think about your education that you did in college, did you ever see it taking you where you are now, or was it more sort of global, like, I mean, you mentioned psychology, you
Yeah.
mentioned early childhood,
Yeah.
and so here you are, running this company that does paper and packaging.
Yeah, I mean, I would say St. Olaf, I think much the feel of this campus too. It's a great size that you're interact, even if you're not, I wasn't a music major. I think I was the only person that didn't do anything with music at St. Olaf, but you interact. I mean, it's a community, right? And so I would say that the spirit of St. Olaf, at least my experience there, it was interdisciplinary, right? You're going to events, you're being social, you're out in the community, and so St. Olaf also had a really, at the time I was there, they encouraged people to study abroad, and while I wasn't able to do a full semester anywhere, they had a J-term opportunity, so that was kind of my first opportunity traveling. Had I not been able to do that, I don't know if I would have considered taking a job in Japan, but I think I gained the confidence to be able to at least weigh that decision and ask the right questions. I mean, I would say much like the university here, you guys have great guidance counselors. I think you get good support of, it's a safe space to ask questions and explore those things. Candidly, I think that's what this experience should be. And so I took full advantage of that when I was there. And so, yeah, I think it contributed a lot to just, again, being open-minded, feeling comfortable having conversations and learning new things.
I think you may have undersold in your presentation just everything that was going on in
It's a lot going on.
2014.
Yeah, it's a lot.
At that time. At that time, in the industrial distribution market, the two
Oh,
largest,
yeah.
Yes, 6 months
yeah.
after you started as CEO, the two largest
Yeah,
paper
came
distributors
together.
merged. And now there's all sorts of consolidation happening in the market.
Yeah.
You made the comment that you didn't know if you were getting the business ready to grow
Right.
or getting it ready to sell. How did you make those decisions? How did the board make those decisions? There was a lot going on, and
Yeah.
what helped you hold it all together and get to a point, as you said, from surviving to thriving?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's what do they say? Luck is when preparation meets opportunity, right? I think I don't necessarily always agree with that because I was not prepared and I don't know what the opportunity was at the time. But I think distribution, and I think especially that company, I mean, I'll never forget going into, my mother had worked her way through the company to become the CEO. And unfortunately, when she got sick, she had less than 5 weeks to the day she was diagnosed to the day she died. So, and it was right around the holidays too. So, like, she left for Christmas break, said goodbye to we have a big party, and she just never came back. And so there was this kind of collective mourning and grieving. I don't know if any of you have been in that kind of a situation, if it's a department or a class or whatnot, where you have that experience. But I think there was a real determination and grit to just keep going. And there was enough disruption going on with distribution at the time. So again, we had these two monsters that were coming together to form this unknown, bigger monster, right? And I think we had a lot of suppliers that were like, these small to mid-size or regional, distributors, we need these people, right? We need David in addition to Goliath, right? And so even though I wasn't known to many people and it was a cutthroat time, I mean, I did have a number of suppliers kind of come in, politely shake my hand, say, I knew your mom, I loved her, but you get a year tryout, and if you don't hit these numbers, we're cutting you off. I mean, that will kind of put the fear of all the things into you. And so I would say that, what did I do? I mean, I leveraged the team. I was transparent. I went eyeball to eyeball like I'm doing with you, and I said, I'm going to show up every day for you. Show up every day for me. We'll get it done. We'll get through it. And so, we did. It ended up going the right direction. And I guess here we are. Shoot.
You just touched on it a bit maybe, but I was wondering sort of what your crash course was.
Yeah.
You suddenly become CEO, which I haven't done before, so how the heck do I do that?
Yeah.
It's a family business. Probably at that point you already know that family businesses can be messy, whether this one was or not, but you got to figure out how do you make it so it's not messy. The paper industry, which by that point you had a bit of an understanding of, but probably not at the scale as you need to know as a CEO. Can you talk about sort of what you, aside from your team, which you just mentioned, right? Was that getting yourself off to additional training? Was that what was that crash course like?
I ended up joining a peer group. So again, I didn't have an executive network. I didn't have the skills that a lot of executives had, but I was willing to show up and I was willing to ask questions. And so I joined. It's called Vistage. There are a few like that. What I liked about Vistage is it was a peer network, but it also involved coaching. So I work with a business coach today. I meet with Sharon every month, and I have a dashboard with her. She keeps me accountable. I have a dashboard with my team. For those of you on the business side of things, have you ever read the book Traction? Familiar with that? Okay, so we run Traction. We're an EOS company. I feel really strongly about that. So again, I kind of said, I need you guys all. I'm not the smartest one in the room. I've got representatives from each part of our business, and here's what we're going to measure. Here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to eat the frog every meeting, right? Do the hard thing first, and we'll keep things moving. So I don't know that we always do it well, but I mean, we try, so sometimes you get lucky.
Other questions?
How are you using AI in operations? I mean, you gave
Really
this
great question.
example, but I'm more intrigued on the operations side, how you infuse that in the business. Thank you.
Yeah, so we're in the process of working with Infor, who does our ERP, on how we utilize that. I mean, we recently just automated our warehouse, so how we kind of use those, some of that reporting and that analysis to help us better manage our inventory. So I think we're slotted to start that April 1. So kind of kick on some of that, because An ERP is really great because it helps you make decisions based on where you've been, but we want to kind of understand, how we do that, anticipating with trends. So we're looking to utilize that. We're certainly using Copilot, with content and on the HR side and some of that, but we're definitely open to where that conversation goes. I think what's interesting is we work in a couple different, to the inventory point, associations where we're all kind of talking about, and it's a little bit dicey because, you've got your best friends in the room, some of them not so much. So, do you really want to pool inventory information? But I think there's a lot to be said for what that does for some of these algorithms and some of this work that's anticipating trends in inventory and things of that nature. Yep.
Other questions?
I have one actually.
Shoot.
So have you read the book Unreasonable Hospitality?
No, but it sounds like a good one.
You would love that.
Okay.
So when you mentioned that River Falls company you were working with,
Yeah.
saying that they
Yep.
kept calling you,
Yeah.
had all these questions,
Yep.
showed up.
Mm-hmm.
It reminded me a lot of that because
Okay.
the book essentially is this hotel manager from New York City, really successful, that sort of thing. It's
Yep.
a memoir for that. But it's basically going above and beyond for those people.
Yeah. Yep.
Do you think you're going to be doing that even more when Anchor Paper Company becomes Anchor in this sense?
I think so, because I think that when you're talking specifically too about customized packaging solutions, yeah, I think there's a huge component of service that goes around that. I think that there are a lot of challenges that haven't been, or I should say solutions that have not been untangled yet that need to be when it comes to cross-country commerce and shipping things. So yeah, I think that, I don't know if I quite answered that, but yeah, no, I think service is going to be a bigger component. As the machines continue to take over, they will to an extent, but especially for a certain price tag, you got to be doing this. People have to feel good that they're putting their solution in your hands.
Please.
Do you guys have like a lot of competitors in the space? And if so, like, how do you give your guys' stuff the edge on them?
It's a really good question. We do. So I would say when I came in to the business, when I got back from Japan, I think there were a total of 9 other smaller independents like us in the market. Now we're the only one on the paper side. Packaging is a different animal. It's such a big animal. I would say what gives us the edge is that we are the smaller player. Certainly having the capabilities that we've built in this space allows us to play in some of those more commodity areas. And I think that you have some companies, especially during, after we were coming out of COVID with all the supply chain issues, folks like Graco and Michael Foods, they want a solid number 3 player, a number 4 player. I don't need to be your number 1. I'd love to be in that kind of a situation, you're number 3. So, I mean, I think, for me, what I tell our sales team is always ask the question, always show up. There's a jump ball in every situation. Yes, there are bids, or rather there are contracts in place for certain players, but I think that now more than ever, people want to feel good about having their business diversified and also working with a company like ours that's 103 years old, that's on good, solid footing. So, do I think we're going to have better sales strategies for that? Absolutely. Absolutely.
When's the date? When does Anchor Paper become Anchor?
You know what? I just asked. It's being tied into our website remodel, and that could.
So 3 or 4 years. I understand.
Yeah, I think it's going to be more like September, but.
But the name is all clear?
Yep,
You've
it's all
done
clear.
the branding searches, you're covered in the packaging categories?
Yes, and if you were to go on our social media now, you will see it just says Anchor. We just haven't done a huge, big, big, big push. Plus our sign, you know, people like our signs. So.
Exactly.
The sign's got to stay.
Iconic downtown St.
Yeah.
Paul. Liz?
I was gonna say, yeah, it is very iconic. May I ask who you're gonna be working with for that?
We're working with Brandography.
I worked there.
Oh, did you?
That's
I was gonna
why-
say you look so familiar at the time.
I was like,
Okay.
okay, I remember now.
Oh, funny. Yeah, because you guys did our River
Yep.
Valley converting, and you did our when
The
we turned
logo.
195. Yeah.
Mhm. Yep,
Okay.
and the calendars.
Yes.
The calendars as well. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, you know all our secrets. I love it. Love it.
Other questions?
That is so awesome.
If not, Brooke, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for your
Yeah.
time. Thank you for your story. And thank you everyone for braving the weather tonight. The information up here to get involved. Please stick around for the reception. Again, we've got great meats and cheeses from Falcon Foods, made by the students right here on campus. So join us for that, and we hope to see you in another 3 weeks when Kevin Westhouse will be in talking about the innovative changes happening at the city of River Falls. So, thanks very much.